And Zoom is now confirming that we are on YouTube Live. Yep, Wig, please go right ahead. Kick us
Yeah,
off.
hi everybody. I'm Wiggs Amor. I'm a co-chair of this committee. We rotate that. Stefan is the other co-chair and has a lot more technical competence, so he's working on that end. We're featuring the Green Line project for this month's main topic, but we usually start with public comments and introductions. And so I wonder if anybody has a public comment. Often, Barry, you often have one. Do you have anything you want to put out there tonight?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
A couple days ago, I was in the South Shore. I was getting dropped off at Walpole to take a train back towards Boston, and we were using GPS, and we couldn't find the station. We probably drove past it 2 or 3 times until finally we semi gave up. I stopped into a warehouse, and they drew me a map, and so I got in. So we found it. Is there some way they could put up a sign saying commuter rail station?
Well, there should be, yes. And we can probably, anybody have any idea of who we should contact about that? Okay, well,
where does he want the sign to go? Where do you want the sign to go, Barry? Where were you? I mean, it's the Walpole station, but would you want it on a roadway or what roadway?
This was on the local street that goes past there. Now, using the timetable, it gave us an address of something like 215 West Street or something like that. So we cranked that into the GPS, and we still couldn't find it. So we went past it.
All right, what's a local street? Sorry to interrupt you. It's a local street. I'll ask someone in service planning. They might know who to talk to about signage, on a local street. So.
Thanks, Len.
Sure.
We used to occasionally interact with the architect. Actually, I think she was by training who did a lot of the signage, but we haven't in a while. So thank you, Barry, for that comment. Anybody else have a public comment? Okay. Oh. Hi, Bonnie. How are you? Hi, Bonnie. You're mute.
It's probably better than Bonnie's mute. It's like once Bonnie starts, hang on, folks.
Hey, come on, you need that spirit. Bonnie, do you want to introduce yourself or do you have any public comment? We're just starting the meeting.
Yeah, I do have a public comment. So my name is Bonnie Wheeler. I live in Bellingham, and I am a 20+ year rider of the commuter rail. I take the Franklin line. So I did it for over 18 years, and I used to be a member of the Rock. And so now I'm back riding the train. Actually, that's unmuted, right? Yeah. So I'm back riding the train, and every single solitary time that I've been riding the commuter rail on the Franklin line, there's an issue. It's late. There's no announcements. There's no rhyme or reason why. So the service has just been horrendous. And I do notice, so I work at in the Longwood medical area. The Longwood medical area, all the employees were off or working hybrid or whatever. Everybody's back on site as of November 1st. So the ridership has skyrocketed. There's 2 and 3 people in every seat. There's no social distancing. People are wearing masks. The conductors are wearing masks, but the reliability has just been horrendous.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing to know.
Yeah. So now, do you guys know what's going on at South Station? Is there this construction at South Station, correct?
There's a very large real estate project, among other things. That project actually was in the waiting room for about 20 years. It's a generally quite good company, but I know it's affecting different aspects of South Station operation.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay.
And if you walk outside, I mean, you probably don't have time, but if you walk outside when you're there, just to the sidewalk, or into the bus terminal, you'll immediately recognize it.
Yeah.
And anybody else? Okay. We should do quick introductions. And hey, Jim, do you want to introduce yourself? Because you're kind of not a regular here, and you were nice enough to hook us up with the presenters tonight from your role as a local rep on the Green Line project.
Yeah, sure. I live in Somerville. I have been a member of the GLX community working group, and before that I've been involved going back to the original Beyond Lechmere major investment study.
Yeah, and Jim does some software, including, I think, has worked on some transit software. Is that correct?
No, not really.
I thought you had quite a bit of knowledge of how the machines work, that the card systems work, but that's okay. I don't want to put you on the spot anyway. So should we just go right into it, or should we do brief introductions of ourselves? I mean, we all know each other except for our guests.
But I think Paul, this is the first time that Paul's been at the public meeting. So how about Paul, you want to introduce yourself, and then Martin, and then Terrence?
Yeah, great.
Sure. Hi everyone. I'm Paul Christner with the Central Transportation Planning Staff of the Boston Region MPO, where I am the manager of the Transit Analysis and Planning Group. So I'm happy to be here and to meet everyone.
Super.
Great.
And the rest of us have been on the rock for quite a while. So I don't really think we need a lot of introduction unless folks want anything. But this group are big fans of transit and of helping transit work well. I mean,
I think we're fans of when transit works well. We want to see the times when transit doesn't work well be diminishing over time. And as Terrence and Martin know, I mean, we're here to offer any kind of feedback from the voice of the writer that we can. And the oversight in our name is exactly that. We try to look at what has happened in the past and make sure that we can provide good advice and recommendations to the agencies from our points of view based on what we've seen.
Yeah, and I guess I would add, just in case anyone doesn't know this, and Len will know this better than I, as he's one of the original members. But the committee was started, I think, by the T itself when there was a large fare increase, and they thought it would be a good idea to start a committee that had, at that time, equal representatives from the public. I think in the beginning we had 8 public members, and we had 8 members of the T itself, and then we had 8 advocacy group members. But it's kind of collapsed into mostly public members who are transit fans since that time as it evolved. So Marty and Terry, would just let you do your thing with Stefan's assistance on any technical needs.
Well, I mean, please do introduce yourselves, because I think the last time we had you both here I think it was over a year ago. I think we were still in the core of the lockdown, as a matter of fact. So welcome back, and yeah, please, for folks who don't know you, please say hi.
Well, thanks for having us. Marty Nee, I'm a consultant with City Point Partners, and I'm also a member of the GLX program management team, part of the program management construction management contract. And I support Terry McCarthy in public outreach and also in rail activation.
And I'm Terry McCarthy. I have worked for the MBTA for about 16 years now, and I work as the Deputy Program Manager for the Green Line Extension Project and manage stakeholder engagement as well as rail activation of the system, which basically is coordinating internal MBTA workforces as well as workforces with MassDOT and alike to bring the GLX system online and bringing it into revenue service. So I'm going to share my screen.
Yep, go right ahead.
Oh. All right. Do you have to give me permission?
You
Let me
should
try-
have it.
Let me try it
Oh,
again.
nope, you're right. I missed that setting. Try it again. Now you should be good to go. I did have it set wrong.
Okay, share.
Excellent.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. So, oops. Oh, one thing where we have a good, great group tonight, like we've had before, certainly want to foster discussion through the presentation. You don't have to wait to the end or, hey, Terry, I've got a question about that slide. I can even back up if there's a question you think about sometimes. So don't hesitate to join in, as they say. So as I said, I'm Terry McCarthy. I work for the MBTA as the GLX Deputy Program Manager. And tonight's agenda, just, as we went through introductions, I'm going to give a safety moment at the MBTA to develop a safety culture through the entire organization. We always have a safety moment before a meeting begins. And then I'll give a brief project update, kind of building upon a year or so ago when I presented. And I'm going to also talk about GLX and the inspired transit-oriented development that is attached to every single station throughout the alignment. And I'll talk about that, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers. So the safety moment, Marty helped with this. I think he was the one who found the card that says, if you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. A little cliche, but it's an important thing that, and especially at public meetings during the pandemic, we wanted to remind people to get their annual checkups. One thing that the CDC cited as a problem, people had dropped off on their regular cancer screenings during the pandemic, and that's something we all need to get back into. One big thing of checking in with your mental health as well as the mental health of people you're working around. It's been extremely stressful time and a lot of changes. We're always working to prevent heart disease, healthy diet, exercise plan, proper sleeping hygiene. And one of the biggest points we try to drive home to our employees is take your personal time off. I always use the adage that to make sweet music, you have to put a space between the notes. So it's an important thing to have. So just real quickly for people who possibly don't know, the project history, we actually had a start a few years ago, 2012 or so. And in late 2015, the MBTA had to halt the progression of the Green Line extension due to affordability. Costs were approaching the $3 billion plus mark. And we affectionately refer to that as episode 1. And we refer to ourselves working on the project now as episode 2. And Marty had worked on the interim team that brought the project back online. And we began the notice to proceed in December 2017. And as of today, we're actually 82% complete with the construction of the project, and looking to bring the Union branch online for revenue service in spring 2022.
Terry, one quick thing about that that first step and then the redesign. I mean,
Yep.
in I don't know, in like 50 words or less, would it be possible to summarize what we learned from that startup, stop, reassess, start up again?
Yeah.
I mean, is there any
Well-
way to summarize that, or is it just is it too
just to
complicated?
summarize it, in episode 1 was an effort with what is called the CM at risk delivery method, which basically develops the project and kind of builds it in phases. And they started building in the first phases. Well, part of that is looking at the next phase and the next phase and the completion phase. Well, this is where costs were growing, and the designs of the stations, as much as they were pleasing and had good input from the public and alike, there were a lot of elements that started being cost prohibitive. An example of something, large glass curtain walls, or elements like our government station center that has a very large glass structure around it. Those type of elements were driving the costs to the $3 billion mark. So we halted and redesigned it to be as minimal as possible, still meeting all code requirements, accessibility requirements, and alike, and be able to deliver the project within the present budget of $2.3 billion. So essentially, the interim team that Marty was on had to cut that throughout the entire length of the project, and it was accomplished by standardizing the stations and the construction elements and alike.
Yeah,
So
that's a great way to answer it. Yeah, thank you. Just correct me if I'm wrong. It seemed to me like the initial episode 1, like those initial
Mhm.
packages, sort of put like style more ahead of just function. You know the old expression of like form follows function.
Right,
It seemed
right.
to me like style took too high of a precedent there. Is that accurate, do you think?
Yeah, that's accurate. I use, as a civil engineer, I use the function before form adage, like
Right.
you were just saying. Yeah, a good way to look at it. Everything was great and positive, but some of the elements that they were looking at in the first original design, and we'll talk about this tonight, was almost trying to build an interior element of TOD. If we're going to do this, should we have a retail space here? And okay, and I'll talk about it more on TOD. And that's kind of the I don't know if dance is an inappropriate word, but that's what got caught up in the design. So when we did halt and do a redesign, we really did follow that function and opposed to form. So and actually, in talking tonight, you'll see how the TOD things grew from that. So, but yeah, great question. Great question. So this first picture is the East Cambridge Viaduct and the GLX project where they meet at Land Boulevard intersection. And one of the great decisions the team made was basically rehabilitating the East Cambridge Viaduct structure while we built GLX. And the two projects have merged very well. And here's an aerial view from June of 2020. And this is this past October. I'm going to use my little laser pen. You can see this is the Leechmere station. It has a large canopy across the station. This is the north head house, and there's a south head house. This head house has two elevators, and this head house has one elevator. One of the important commitments to the BCIL agreements was to, where possible, provide redundancies in the elevators. We couldn't do it at every station, but most either have a redundant elevator or we've not precluded building another one. So this is a picture of the platform of the Leechmere station. It's nice to see when you drive by, the lights are on in the station when you look up. And the picture on the right is at grade, at street level for the, I think that's the North Head House. That's actually kind of the plaza area within Cambridge Crossing, looking at the entrance of the station. And this is a great picture to see. We just put in the bicycle racks at Leechmere. Just a reminder about GLX, it is been designed only for use by pedestrians and bicycle users. There's no parking. The whole commitment from the Central Artery Tunnel Projects days was to build this project and reduce vehicle congestion and improving air quality. So a bicycle cage like this is an extremely important element, as well as we have significant amount of bike racks around each station and bicycle cages. So this is the Union Square station. This is the first branch that's going to be opening up this coming spring.
And can I ask a question?
Sure.
When are the buses going to cut over to the new station from the old station at Leechmere?
When the bus shuttle system goes away from North Station and the new Leechmere station opens, the buses will also go into the new busway that is part of the stations. So it'll be a clean transition.
And will you kind of practice that, offline to make sure that's a smooth transition on the bus side?
Actually, we've already begun some of that work.
Okay.
I know the 69, the 80, and 90 and 96. The four bus routes that are there, they're
Well,
already
87 and 88 are there.
That's it, 87 and 88. They're already running tests, and our training department is already looking at elements of training new bus drivers as well as the old bus drivers to use that facility. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. So this is Union Station. The US 2 development is to our right. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But Union Station to Leechmere Station, 100% track is in, 100% catenary is in. Just this past week, we've started energizing the catenary system, and in a few weeks, we'll start running our test trolleys on the track system between Union and North Station and in our yard facility, which I'll show early. So we're getting pretty close to be able to physically put a trolley on the tracks of the Union branch.
And just a question about that station.
Yeah.
We know that the branch can't be extended to Porter until there's a resolution of the power station there.
Yep.
Do you have in case that takes a long time?
Yep.
Do you have a package of material kind of set aside so that whoever might work on that in the future would know what key issues to consider in redesigning that power station and maybe eventually getting the service to Porter, which I think would help East Cambridge especially.
One of the requirements of the GLX project and contract is not to preclude the ability to run service to Porter. There's not only is there the power substation issue, but there's about 5 bridges between Union Station and Porter.
Yep.
They would all need some element of modification or replacement. So I don't see any of that happening in the near future, but it's certainly something we've made sure could be done in the future.
I wonder if that would be something that we should ask CTPS or somebody else to work with the T on, just creating a small report on, it doesn't have to be all nuts and bolts, but just a small report on, because you have so much knowledge right now, but if it's 10 or 20 years down the road, some of that knowledge is probably not going to be as readily available at everybody's fingertips as you have right now. So I wonder if anybody has thought about, just having some package to put on the shelf in case that's picked up again in the future.
Well, we certainly archive the contract documents and as-built for the present GLX project, which would be available in the future, even if it's 20 or 25 years from now. That could be helpful in doing something like that. But that's kind of out of my realm. I stick within the project scope is my main. But
okay, thank you.
Terry, one quick thing while you're on this slide, because this is showing a great example of where there's commuter rail right next to the new Green Line. Again, I'm thinking in terms of lessons learned. Was there anything that was a big takeaway from that whole integration of a new rapid transit Green Line right next to commuter rail? I mean, I know there was a lot of track reconfiguration right at BET. I know there was a little bit of track reconfiguration going up north on the branch, the Green Line branch to Medford. I mean, did everything go smoothly? Like, working with commuter rail folks. I mean, again, were there lessons learned? Like, we'll not do it that way next time, or we definitely do it that way next time.
Actually, and I think Marty can attest to this, we had a great working relationship with the commuter rail. Basically, they were integrated into our team, coordinating on a daily basis and a weekly planning meeting. So, I mean, at one time, and Marty, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had 70 or so Keolis flagging or controllers out there, making sure the work moved forward safely. And
definitely the amount of coordination was amazing, and it was just continuous every day. And the attitude people took was, solve the problem, it doesn't matter, whose fault it is, or, you
Yeah.
know, whatever needs to be done, just do it. And
Yeah.
there was tremendous coordination.
You know what, the biggest hurdle, which we're seeing even more now, was resources. Keolis had to take on a kind of a significant like hiring effort, where people who work as flagging controls, the easiest way, they start out as track workers, learning the business. So as soon as they would be able to move people along and hire new, people would phase from doing labor work to helping with us, and then they'd go back to labor work and alike. So it was a good crew. And if there's any lesson learned, but I think it's minor, is just being able to hire the resources that are needed to support a project like this. But that's in any endeavor.
You
like this.
happen to know, this is a little bit outside the bounds of the project, but do you happen to know if the South Side Maintenance Facility will be sufficient to do all the commuter rail maintenance needed out of South Station?
Yeah, I'm afraid I
Okay.
wouldn't know. I'm kind of on the GLX
Yeah,
scope. and
no,
kind
that's
of
okay.
Out of the loop on.
Is that a T project? I'm assuming it's not a Keolis project.
Well, it would be a T project. Remember, Keolis, it's all MBTA. Keolis
Right.
is our
Operator.
service company operator. for the
Right.
commuter
Yeah,
rail.
that's why I asked you.
Yeah.
If I didn't assume that, I would not have asked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and actually, you bring up a good point. When we do a commuter rail construction project, that's the MBTA's both capital programs
Yep.
group and alike. Keolis scope is limited to pure operation of
Right.
the trains.
Yep.
So,
Thanks.
yep. So this is just a look at the Union Square platform. And in the background here, this is a bicycle cage similar to Leechmere. Interesting point, and I'll mention it again when talk about US2 development. US2's development is pedestrian and bicycle oriented, and don't hold me to it. I think we're building about 90 parking bicycle spots, and I think US2 within their development, they had talked about something like 200. Don't hold me hard and fast to that number, but it's pretty close. So it's a significant amount of bicycle use that can take place. And this is the Red Bridge Viaduct. Marty and I work in this building right here. It's 200 Interbelt. Right here is the brick bottom condominium units. And this is the Medford branch heading to Tufts. And this is the Union branch outbound. And then the Union branch comes up and meets in this location. And if we look to today, this is the Medford branch. This is Union branch outbound. And this is the community path viaduct that's been put in place. And this truss you see is the highest point on the project. It's about 64 feet above grade. It crosses over the Green Line extension transit tracks, as well as the Fitchburg line coming out of the BET. We affectionately, Marty and I refer to it as the roller coaster, because when you're up here, it's they're going around. And the MBTA folks call this inbound area the jug handle. So it's, and if you look down on it, it does look like a jug handle.
Marty, quick question: who is responsible for the community path, like snow clearing and other, if there's any trash removal? Is that MBTA or is that Cambridge?
The MBTA designed and built the path, and Terry, jump in if I misstate this.
No,
And
no problem.
the city of Somerville stepped up early on and has agreed to maintain it. And, that the fine details of that are being negotiated right now.
Yeah, but yeah, the city of Somerville has really stepped up on maintaining it, picking up the trash, removing snow and those items. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Yep. So this is our vehicle maintenance facility, and this is a little more than 1 year's progress. And this was in June of 2022. And this is in October. We actually have 3 test vehicles in the facility, hoping to roll those out in the next week or so. And we have a number 9 car, a number 8, and a number 7. So it's really taking shape. And this is the East Somerville station. When you were talking about the commuter rail, this is the Washington Street Bridge. And this is the underpass of Washington Street up to McGrath Highway. One of the things that had to occur, these 2 tracks were relocated to where the Green Line transit tracks are. We built this part of the bridge, and then we moved the commuter rail tracks back, and then we could build this section of the bridge. So it was a significant effort of moving the commuter rail over and then back. So, and this is a good way to see how that all is. Once again, bike cage at the East Somerville station. And where I have my cursor, this is a walkway down to Washington Street. And this is the community path as it comes along. And as you go along here, it meets up with that viaduct section I showed you in the previous. And this is Gilman Station. One big thing I want to point out, this is the Somerville High School project. And you can see the size of the retaining walls that we've all been involved with building. Probably one of the abilities of contractors and city and the MBTA working together. We basically were able to build this station and renovate Somerville High School at the exact same time, using similar roadways, using access. Literally, you have a crane there. Can you make a pick for me? And okay, I'm going to have a crane next week. Can you pick this? That's how cooperative it was working between the 2 projects.
And just for non-Somervillians, the new high school is all off to the left. I mean, this cliff-like area extends quite a ways.
Yeah, I think we're actually looking at the top of the city hall.
You are.
City Hall, right?
You are. And then the next building just in the corner is part of the old high school that was saved but hasn't been rehabbed completely yet.
Yeah. And this, just for reference, this is the School Street Bridge. And as you can see, there's an elevator in this location. And this is down near the Medford Street Bridge. And this elevator is the community path is the access to this elevator. And it is also going to be an access area to Somerville High School and from Somerville High School. There's talk of, and it's pretty secure that the high school will build some type of elevator access from the high school property down to the community path, and you would walk across the path to get into the Gilman station. But that's still all kind of in, I'd say development, but it's definitely a go to do that. And that's the city of Somerville doing that. That's not part of the MBTA project. And this is some pictures of Magoon Square, which is off of the Lowell Street, the Lowell Street Bridge. Off the bridge, there's platforms and bridge connections to the station. And it's really coming along. It's a very tight location to work in. There's basically one construction kind of access from the Murdoch Street area, and it is tight. We've had to bring every element in by very tight access or bring it by rail on the commuter rail. Occasionally on the weekends when we'd have a shutdown, we could bring material in by rail, and a lot of that. I think the main truss bridge from the Lowell Street Bridge to the station, that came in on rail, didn't it, Marty? On flatbed sections? Yeah.
Yes, it did. And it went up in June. It was lifted off the rail bed and put in place in June.
Yeah.
June 19th.
Yeah.
Remember it well.
Yeah, you remember it well. Ball Square. This is the station there. One of the unique things of Ball Square, we have a traction power substation right next to the station. I think, I can talk about that more when we talk about TOD functions, but this station's come along. I mean, the business community in Ball Square, I mean, it's such a great connection to that area of both South Medford and Somerville. And this is aerial view from Tufts University parking garage of the Medford Tufts station. Just for reference, this is Boston Ave. This camera is on the roof of Tufts parking garage. And this is the Joyce Cummings building that's recently built. And I'm going to talk actually more about that when I talk about TOD elements. So any questions on any of that in the update before I talk about?
Yeah, just one very quick question. It was back in July, after we had that month of just tremendous downpours, that the month of deluge rainstorms. We had Joe Cheever, who's in charge of MBTA maintenance, up, and we talked to him about all the pumping issues and water mitigation issues. I'm just curious, is there any part along the new Green Line extension where there is pumping for water mitigation, or is it all just gravity runoff?
Oh boy.
And if you don't know, that's fine. We can ask.
No, Marty's smiling right now. We know.
Yeah.
The GLX took on basically almost a regional level drainage improvement effort, if that's fair to say.
It's very fair to say.
Yeah. So we were involved in drainage improvements along the corridor and into city areas for the stormwater drainage discharge points into the Mystic River, into Miller's River, into Prison Point, and alike. We have 3 major pump stations we've built, and we have, I want to say 3, it might be 4, what I call micro or micro pumping stations. But we have in the area by the East Somerville Station, we have twin 90-inch storm drain carrying pipes to our Redbridge pumping station, which goes to Miller's River and Point. But our pump stations were designed, or we've worked cooperatively with the city of Somerville, where all that work that's going on in Union Square and drainage and things, the large Barletta project, all that will culminate into the areas around McGrath Highway, Joy Street, and alike. And most of us know where what is called the Art Farm in that area, if you're familiar. It's kind of Washington Street, Joy Street, Poplar Street area.
yeah.
Right. They're going to put a large tank system so that during storm events, water will be stored there. And when a rain event starts falling off and the twin 90s can accept more flow, we will then improve drainage, for a good portion of Somerville, Cambridge area. So drainage has been a big effort within GLX. And to give you an example, at Washington Street, the existing pumps were like 200 gallons a minute, and the new pumps are in like the 10,000 gallon a minute category. It's not even the same type of structure. So, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you. Oh, that's great news. I'm
Yep.
thrilled.
Yep. So talking about TOD, and I'm going to go through each station fairly quickly. Leechmere Station is surrounded by the Cambridge Crossing development. US 2, which most people are very familiar with. I've also highlighted our vehicle maintenance facility. And the reason I've done that, in that area, there's like a Holiday Inn there that many of you probably know. They're building other hotel and garage space in that area as part of the TOD effort and utilizing East Somerville Station. It also is, some of that work is fostered by the Encore casinos being right down the street. East Somerville Station, North River developers who actually own the office building Marty and I work in. I'll show you the development they're doing along Joy Street. Then Gilman Station, the city of Somerville, where the old Holman's building was. That area is being developed basically by the city of Somerville, looking for TOD investments as well as public park space and alike. Magoon Square, Windsor Developments, these are apartments and things that like Maxwell Green and other entities. I know on the Murdoch Street area, we're working with entities that will be building right next to the Magoon station. For example, one group, our emergency exit out onto the station will go out through their parking lot and onto a sidewalk through their development. We also have that condition at Ball Square, where the emergency exit is into the Sphere apartment parking area and then onto their sidewalk areas and the like.
And Terry, especially for Stefan, I might mention that Magoon Square and Lowell Street up to the southwest of Magoon Square are where two of the older rail branches diverged. And so
Yes.
the community path kind of veers off there to go to Davis Square.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. I'll actually, Ball Square, actually the MBTA has made provisions for TOD. And Tufts University Cummings building we tied in, but the yellow line you see coming up on the screen is the community path. And just to let you know the significance of this tie-in, and many on the call may know this, but we're tying in at Lowell Street, just like Wig was talking about, which ties into the Somerville Community Path, which ties into Davis and Alewife paths, and then it ties into the Minuteman Trail.
Yeah,
Well,
and it goes all the way to Bedford.
Yep, and goes all the way to Bedford, which, going back to the commitment of reducing vehicle congestion and improving air quality, this connection would allow someone to live in Bedford, Mass, and ride their bicycle, that have to be in pretty good shape, to basically the Cambridge Crossing and Leechmere Station area, and then they'd simply ride their bike across at Land Boulevard and tie into the entire Charles River network, as well as tying into going into downtown Boston. So if someone worked at like the Biotech in Kenmore Square, they could live in Lexington and ride their bike to work.
Yeah, or Mass General.
Or Mass General. Yeah, it's really great. North Point, and that's what I remembered the area as before it was called Cambridge Crossing. Back when I worked on the Central Artery in the late 80s, the yard was owned by originally Boston Main Railroad, and it's a 45-acre site. And it was always in the plan to turn it into residential and commercial retail. But it had a slow start. In the 90s, they built the two North Point buildings. I think it was Jones LaSalle developer who did that. Then in phase 2, they decided that they would, and I believe it was the state, construct some streets and infrastructure to entice developers to come along. And then Cambridge Crossing, just real quick on the history, that was the North Point area. And this was kind of a picture of Cambridge mapping in 2010. And this area basically was just a large vacant area of former train yards. And this picture is an aerial view from 2012. And you can see where they had constructed a few roadway items and at the time kind of a public park area. And so this is what, it was, and many of us may remember it. And then Cambridge Crossing bought the entire development and started constructing its development. But and this is what they show as one of their renderings of what was anticipated for bringing a new Leechmere station and the Green Line extension, making their investment possible. And it's Divco West. Most people sometimes call it the Divco development, but they in 2012 they had looked at the MBTA system and the potential of the Green Line extension being put in. And as you can see, it was an easy decision for them to make the investment in that area, because with the Green Line extension and the surrounding boundary of the red and orange line and leading into downtown Boston, and in some ways, I think it was a no-brainer for them that it would be a successful project. And just a little note on that, they talk about their project being a $2+ billion effort. And US2 also does the same. So you can see as the state makes more investment in infrastructure, it just grows the economy exponentially. I feel we're still seeing growth from the Central Artery Tunnel Project efforts as well. So I grabbed this from US2's kind of history and website, but one of the big things I wanted to point out that one of the first things you see is that they were marketing that it was a new transit-oriented development, and that there was going to be access to 2 of the Green Line stations. And some of their selling points was the residential, steps from transit service, shopping. They are working on biotech workspaces, so they wanted a tie to Kendall Square. Some of the residents already work in the scientific and health industries. One interesting item is 46% of Somerville residents are in the millennial workforce group, which is attractive, not only that they're a young workforce, but it would be attractive for others in that workforce and demographic to move to Somerville. And we're providing about 96, we're providing bicycle cages and the like, and so is their development. So I guess it got a rating, a 96 plus for having walking and bicycles for a development project.
And just for folks who might not know them, US2 is a Chicago-based,
Yep.
downtown Chicago-based company.
Yep.
The senior principal had a daughter at Tufts, so that may have helped a little bit.
Yeah, I have seen developers that sometimes that's the actual correction. I have a golf course. Well, it's the one, but I had a golf course growing up that was the holes were 300 yards. It was called an executive course, and it was beautiful. And I couldn't understand, how is this beautiful course? And I found out a large developer had built it for his daughter because her daughter wanted to play in the PGA and he thought it would be good for her to have a practice facility. And I just shook my head when I would hear those stories. So yes, there's sometimes very good reason why something happens. So this is US2. They have quite the endeavor in developing Union Square elements, Somerville Ave. And this here is where the Union Square station is. And they're presently building this tower. It's, I think, 22 stories high. And when you stand at the Union Square station and you look up at it, it's just a massive development. I don't know if everyone knows, US2 is building an elevator from the Prospect Street Bridge down to the station. The MBTA will take over ownership and maintenance of it, but the station has an accessible path, but there was great advocacy within the community to build an
Yeah,
elevator.
we pushed very hard for that, in part to help Inman Square in Cambridge, which is
Yes.
just down the street.
Yeah,
And that elevator will really increase accessibility to the Inman Square Cambridge
right.
residents.
Yeah, we worked with Rep. Mike Conley in regards to that area of Cambridge and it being important. I think we had talked with you as well, Wick, and that was
Absolutely.
being advocated for. So the East Somerville Station, as I pointed out in an earlier picture, this is the building Marty and I work in, 200 Interbelt, owned by North River. They have purchased all the land across on, well, it's Chestnut Street and Joy Street. And they are going to build a biotech, like laboratory space, office space, residential space, basically the length of the alignment. And they are talking about pedestrian bridges and paths connecting to the community in the future for their development to cross over. And they could potentially build other buildings on each side of the East Somerville Station. So
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this. I mean, it's just a historical footnote, but that building that has the triumvirate
Yes.
environmental label on it. And by the way, he's a Bowdoin guy, about the same vintage as the owner of Suffolk Construction.
okay.
But that was built by Trizak Hahn, which was a Canadian company that came in there. I forget what they really wanted to do there.
Mhm.
And they went under in a big downturn. They were a big retail oriented developer. And that building also is where all the Harvard paintings and artifacts are worked on.
Mhm. Yeah, when Marty and I worked earlier in the project, when we were knew we would have to close the Washington Street underpass, and did a large regional outreach for traffic and the like. When we talked to Triumvirate, I think they said 100 trucks a day come in and out of their facility at the end of
I think,
Interbelt.
yeah, up as many as 120 a day.
A day coming
They're
in
busy.
and out. Yeah, very busy.
Yeah, and that whole Interbelt area has historically been a trucking area because it's
Mhm.
so close to the core of Boston, downtown Boston, and to
Yeah.
East Cambridge.
Yeah,
And it's in, of course, transition now, but
yeah.
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, most of well, before coming to the T, I worked on the Central Artery Tunnel project. So I've always been in a dense urban environment. And when I moved to 200 Interbelt, there was nothing within walking distance of that location. You had to get in your vehicle and drive
Yeah.
about a mile to get out.
Yeah.
And they're
Well,
like, how can
tractor trailer scale is big.
Yeah.
Plus these roads don't connect well, as you know. And across the street is a building that has had a lot of Mass General operation.
Correct. And they still do have a presence there, but I think it's more like warehouse space. But
if that pedestrian connection is made, I think two things. One is it's going to really, increase the desirability of Interbelt Road, but also it will increase the incentive to do other land uses besides tractor trailer trucks.
Yeah, and in fairness to Somerville, because so many rail lines crisscross Somerville and other regional transportation, there are a lot of dead ends. Places like as the Mainers say, you can't get there from here, even though you can see it. So
yeah, no, it's good. And next one I wanted to talk about was Ball Square. This is a better aerial picture, and this is the MBTA's traction power substation. Here's the canopy for the station. And if you look over here, there's an MBTA bus crossing the Broadway Bridge, and following the Broadway Bridge down, it comes into the intersection of Boston Ave and Broadway in Ball Square. There's two entrances to the station in this location off of Boston Ave, and then there's an elevator system off the bridge down to the station. But the big thing wanted to show about Ball Square and thinking ahead is land use. Here's that power substation we were looking at. Here's the entrance and elevator off the Broadway Bridge, Boston Ave entrance at grade. We, from the beginning of the project, earmarked this kind of right angle area for potential TOD development. And when the MBTA is in operation and in revenue service, they will accept proposals for land use in this area. Now, I had mentioned the Sphere apartment building, which is right next door. We actually share a driveway with Sphere. And right here is where that I mentioned about an emergency exit. People had to get out of the station. They go through doors through the fence and they come out into the parking lot and out to safe refuge. And that's just an example of working cooperatively and how, present developments and future developments kind of work together.
So I have to run. I'm so sorry. I have another engagement that I can't be too late for. There was
Okay,
also a well-loved little bowling alley on that site too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming and presenting this. And
Oh, thank you.
if folks have local questions, if Jim stays on, he can probably answer them better than I could anyway. But thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Wig. Thanks for
Thanks,
all your
Wig.
support. Yeah.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah. The last one I'm going to talk about is the Joyce Cummings Center at Tufts. Just pointing out that this is a plaza area that they are developing, and we worked with them in developing the station that we'd be putting a pedestrian bridge in, which we would have had to done anyway, but we did it very much in the planning elements of the building and how the bridge would work. Another element of the environmental commitments, the College Ave Bridge, we're removing the sidewalk on the bridge and installing a right turn only lane. What that allows is, instead of vehicles idling at the intersection, everyone who takes a right turn will be able to do a right on red. And that way eliminating queuing to reduce, to improve air quality and congestions on the roadway. So that, this is kind of a rendering. And one thing on Tufts website, the first line item about the Cummings Center is transit-oriented design and bicycle friendly. So, and this is what the rendering of it looking at night. And why I have this picture here is this truss bridge, which you could go by and see today. I think, it'll be opening, next year. And this is the Medford Tufts station in this location. And that's pretty much it.
Well, I'll jump in real quick. I saw the numbers on the square footage, but for a novice in terms of urban planning, how does the square footage relate to, say, for just residential? Just talking about residential here.
Yeah.
Do you have a ballpark figure about how many individual residential units are being spurred by this whole project? I mean, more than just Union Square, like, taking everything into account. Any ballpark?
Well, I certainly don't have a ballpark off the top of my head. We could certainly look at the amount of square footage. A single, I use in my world the 1,000 square feet for an apartment or something of that nature. In today's market, that might be a little high. I don't know, Marty, do you have a sense? But that would be a good way to figure out the numbers of units or alike that would support. But I don't have that figure.
That's okay.
But
That's all right.
it's a good question, and
It is a great question. It would be a great figure to have as it grows. One of the things, Terry and I both worked on the Big Dig, and everyone knew that it was going to stimulate growth. But I don't think anybody understood exactly how much growth it was going to stimulate in that seaport area and
Right.
beyond. And
Yeah.
I think the Green Line is right up there in the same category.
yeah. I mean, if someone told me we're a catalyst for $10 to $15 billion worth of development, I wouldn't argue with that number. When you take in, we think of the cities of, Cambridge, Somerville, and Medford, but does a developer build an apartment building in Lexington and talk about the MBTA bus connections and the path leading to a Gilman station, or riding into Cambridge and Leechmere station and taking the T from there? I mean, there's a pretty big and wide effective area. Just as I always joke, there's a very nice Brazilian steak place on New Washington and Washington Street called Oliveira's. And I love the place, but when we were closing the road at Washington Street, Marty and I were almost petrified to go in and talk to the owners about, closing off the road. They didn't miss a beat. I don't think they even missed providing a meal. You'd go there on Sundays. They liked everything being closed off. They had more parking. But a restaurant like that would now have access, that if somebody on the south side of the city or west side of the city of Boston, they could get there by transit, by the Green Line. So, it's things like that that are going to be, important, and why the reach of everything. Also, tourists, they will utilize it to travel throughout the system. Tufts University, it's a game changer to have that direct connection. So
I asked a lot of questions. We asked a lot of questions and spoke a lot. I want to make sure that we give everybody an opportunity. So Barry and Karen, I'm going to hit the ask to unmute just to give you a chance. You don't have to say anything, but if you want to ask or say anything, please feel free. And Len and Paul and Jim, please do, if you want.
This is Karen. I would like to know if the Type 9s can make the loop at Heath Street on the E line.
yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Len or Paul or Barry, anything? Go right ahead,
Nothing else at the
Len.
time.
I don't have any questions. It's a good presentation. I mean, are you okay with sharing this presentation with us?
Oh, certainly
Great.
can.
That'd be wonderful.
Interested about the TOD, but you say you don't have a sense of the total square footage of residential space, right?
I don't. I mean, it's certainly a number we can get. I mean,
Well, get it if you're
get
it if you're interested in it too.
Yeah.
Don't get it simply for me. I think
Yeah.
the 1,000 square foot is a good estimate. It certainly makes
unit.
the division. It makes the division easier. So you can. It's close enough for getting
Yeah.
the number of units.
Yeah.
So yeah. so overall impressed. I mean, I'll just say kind of as a commentary on how people felt about the early phase of this. I'm the sort of person that feels that government structures and especially transit structures should have an element of dignity is a strong word, but they they should be more than simply utilitarian and designed as cheaply as possible, because I think it's something that some people use all the time, and it's nice for them to feel that their government, which is them, their fellow residents, really care about them and care about their daily experience. So I know people will say that that the stations were gold plated as pejorative. I didn't see them as gold plated, and I saw some of the niceties, especially the enclosed areas, making it really inviting for transit users. Now I understand the money issue, and so the cost got out of control, and we couldn't afford it, and we had to cut back. I understand that, but I was less critical of what had happened initially than I think a lot of people were, even though I understand the outcome. And I think it's an overall good outcome. And I applaud you and the work that you and your team and everyone else has done on it. So thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like we're close to wrapping up on this segment. I've got one. It's kind of a fun question, but I really do mean this quite seriously. I mean, for both you and Terry and for Marty. I mean, this is a serious question. Like, in the same sort of way that the president in the Oval Office has a tradition of like writing a letter to the incoming president and leaving it in the desk in the Oval Office, some private words between the departing president and the incoming president. In a few words, does anything come to mind about what you would write in a letter to someone starting up on the next big transit project? Whether it was somebody in your role in the future or somebody in a different role. I mean, do you have any thoughts about, some warnings or some, oh boy, make sure you do this way? Any thoughts like that?
No. Well, the big success of GLX has been the community support and advocacy of moving it forward, and keeping that connection and that door and window open is important. Jim's a perfect example. We have monthly community working group meetings. Maybe not everyone agrees with what the subject discussed or whatever, but John Dalton, the program manager, really wanted to make sure the door was always open and everyone would be heard. And that's that. I think the best advice I could give future builders, because the public support, city officials, legislators, it's all important to have everybody working towards that goal.
And I would echo that as well. I would leave for anyone coming in after me just, the advice to include the community. And Terry mentioned the community working group. We had our 48th consecutive monthly meeting in November, and those meetings are well attended. By the time we got to build the project, there had been so much input and involvement from so many different people and groups leading up to the final construction, that a lot of that input had already been heard, but we felt that it was extremely important to keep the community engaged. And we tried to do that with the community working group. And as Terry mentioned, we don't always have everyone in agreement, but we continue to sit down and meet every month. And I just think that's the most important thing as well.
I think for what we needed to accomplish, this design build method really worked well with delivering the project in a timely fashion. So.
So with respect to those community meetings, because I mean, I'm a big supporter of that, and I realize how important that is. And it's important to have people who are who welcome it. You don't necessarily have to be good at it, but you have to welcome the community input. And be willing to listen to people and engage them honestly. With candor, because you're not going to get everyone to agree. Once you get beyond 5 people, it's really hard to get everyone in agreement. But you have to just hear people out. But is there any documentation of these meetings, like the minutes of them or whatnot?
Yep.
That's one question.
Absolutely.
Great. Is that on the GLX site?
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go and take a look because that'll be interesting reading. And secondly, did you notice a difference in the nature of the interactions, meeting attendance when you had to go virtual during the pandemic?
I actually think we got, in some ways, well, we got more participation. One interesting element, we would run public meetings in the early half of the project. And our first public meeting, Marty, maybe it was 100. Then the biggest one we had, which I remember was in, I think, January of 2019, we had about 200 people come to an open house alike. Well, our first online public meeting, I think we had 400 people register.
Yeah, we definitely saw an uptick. And I think that is leading a lot of the thought now about public meetings. And there's no substitute for getting together face to face when you can, but supplementing that with a virtual meeting so that you can make it convenient for people who either don't have the time or maybe don't have the mobility to get there. And I think going forward across the country, that is one of the big lessons learned in public outreach from the pandemic.
Well, it's interesting that you say supplement, with virtual, because in my opinion, I would supplement with real life meetings and focus more on the virtual, and then have in real life, no, I say real life, in person meetings, on an ad need basis, but I guess more so what I want to ask, so yeah, there's that big uptick at the beginning. Have you noticed a trend downwards? Probably so in attendance.
I don't think so. I think
really
we
good.
Still get a core group. We don't vote at the community working group meetings. We discuss and we try to come to consensus on things. But we still get a core. We still get that core group.
Okay.
There.
Good. All right, that's good. That's good to hear. So thanks.
Any other questions? Go.
I think we can let you go.
Okay.
Oh, Jim. I mean, Jim's been very quiet. Anything you want to throw in at the end, Jim?
No, I mean, actually, just thinking about the community working group and other meetings. I mean, something I've observed is I think that this project has done an outstanding job in dealing with the people who are directly impacted by construction activities. When you're building in a very dense corridor like this, you have work at night, you have noise, you have trucks and parking problems. And when the community working group first started, I thought, gee, a lot of what we'll be doing will be making up for misunderstandings or poor communication from the project itself. And everything I've heard is that they've just done a great job, whether it's leafleting, putting up, sandwich board signs, robocalls where the city has helped out. So I think, there's always going to be people who lose sleep and upset, but I think there's such a base of community support to begin with that combine then with really good communication with the people who are directly affected. I think it's been a really key part of making the project go very smoothly.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Well,
you were also a very big part of that.
Part of all of it and making it happen. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, Jim, thank you for joining us. And of course, Terry and Marty, I am absolutely thrilled that you could join us. Great job. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's not done yet. So I
Right.
guess the real congratulations are when
Yeah.
everything is finally, put a fork in it, done. But,
Yeah.
congrats. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everybody, to you and your families. And
Okay.
you're welcome to stay
Thank
on,
you.
but you don't have to. Jim, you're welcome to stay on and listen to the rest of the meeting. We're just going to get into regular committee business at this point. Again, thank you so much for joining us and for all your hard work.
I have to cut out. There's a pie
No
discussion
problem.
going on in my house. And I need to be part of that. So thank you all.
We've kept
very
you
much.
beyond the expected time.
Yeah,
So
thank
yeah,
you,
please,
thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Great.
all.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much for having us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Well, we're down to only a couple of people, but I'm still happy to proceed with subcommittee reports,
Well,
or we can
I guess,
postpone until next month if you think that's
yeah,
better.
well, yeah, why don't we? I mean, I think
Okay.
that'll be better, and maybe even until January. I mean, yeah, I have some ideas about how to maybe approach these November, December meetings. Maybe we'll pull them up a week earlier, maybe having just a combined subcommittee meeting the first week of the month. So combine, CIF NCOP meeting, the first week of the month, and then the second week have the Flow Rock meeting, and then the third and fourth weeks off. Because I think this goes to Thanksgiving. Reasonably, people are either away or just focus on other things. I think the same thing with the third weekend of December. So
Yep, completely understandable.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
Craig's traveling. I wouldn't be surprised if probably Jacob's traveling, being a student and everything.
Yeah, Brian isn't, and I'm here because, but I it'd be nice if I were like going to the grocery store myself to get some more ingredients for things I need to cook on tomorrow and Thursday. So, but I'm happy I'm here. But I think we can have our cake, pun intended, and eat it too. If we combine those meetings in the first week, it'll give us some experience with combining the two subcommittees. Especially since we're a pretty small group.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Well, given that we're going to postpone the subcommittee reports, that actually puts us pretty much back on schedule. But we don't have to be here till 7, unless we all want to review things. I did want to give Paul an opportunity just to say, well, like, is anything new going on in your part of the MPO? I mean, and you don't have to. If there's nothing to report, don't worry about it. But I just want to give you the opportunity if you want. It sort of goes under the topic of the external meetings in a way, which is where we're at that part of the agenda right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're supporting the MBTA on a couple different things, that have been approved at the MPO meetings. So Len is probably aware of them. We're doing some general fair equity work right now with them and looking into some of the changes that they're thinking about. Our typical Title VI service monitoring and NTD reporting. So I don't think there's anything super different than what you might have seen at the MPO meetings. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But
thank you for that. It's nice to know that I guess it's nice to know there's nothing coming at you out of left field that's a shock or a surprise.
So are you coming to us from the MPO gym there?
We're all making space at home. This was an exercise area and I shoved my desk sort of in there and
I hear you. Good for you. Yeah. So
when I turn my screen off, I try to use it.
Yeah, I'm just curious, Paul, where was your office before the pandemic?
We're down at 10 Park Plaza at the
You too? Okay.
Yeah,
okay, cool. I didn't know all of you were in there.
Yep.
Excellent.
Paul, so where'd you live before you are you local or were you from out of town, from out of state?
I've been in Boston since 2004. I'm originally from Philadelphia though, so I'm East Coast, but not born and raised in the Boston area.
Yeah, who's the new guy that was from the Midwest?
Oh, Blake in my group. Blake Atkins joined us in the last year. So and now
he's in Framingham, right?
Yes, he came out. He's in Framingham now, so
Yeah.
he's
Right.
MBTA and MWRTA land out there. So
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'm third term RTAC chair, Stefan. So we'll see how long that lasts. The most I would want to do is 4 years to go through a LRTP cycle. I mean, especially I enjoy being on the board. I think it'll be good. If I make it, if I'm elected the 4th year, to give someone else a chance at it. And yeah, I mean, I think a LRTP cycle is a nice little quantum of time, and I wouldn't want to do another cycle, and I think it'll be good to get someone up to speed, to do it, if it's, whether it's someone that's currently a part of the of RTAC, or if we find some new people to join RTAC. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So if I become the chair of the Arlington Select Board, and I have put in a call with the State Ethics Commission, and I've been in touch with a person there. She hasn't gotten back to me. I explained my story to her. She seemed really interested. I haven't heard back from her. I don't know what that means. I know it's a fairly unusual case, but the deal is that Arlington has an at-large seat, and it's gotten reelected to that large seat, and the person who serves represents the chair of the Arlington Select Board, which next year could be me. Now, I don't represent me at the meetings. I represent RTAC as a member of this oversight committee. And now I have no problems compartmentalizing. In fact, not only do I not have a problem doing it, but my whole thing is that we live or die as a region. And I am not by any stretch an Arlington first person. It's like Arlington's like a neighborhood of Boston. And as I say often, it's like in any other major metropolitan area, Arlington would be a neighborhood of Boston. And it's only, our quirky New England history that gives us this independence, that makes us able to have policies that are different, from Boston. But we have to align those policies so that we can get what we want as a region. So that's my honest take on things. So it wouldn't be a matter of Arlington having more than one voice that really focuses on Arlington, because both of us from Arlington have that perspective. But nonetheless, the law is the law, and perception is perception. And so if it doesn't pass muster, then I have a decision to make. Whether I will be chair of the Arlington Select Board, or whether I will step down as chair of RTAC. And it's not even clear to me if I would. I think I'd be able to remain on RTAC, but not really sure. But that would just be temporary, for the year, that I am Select Board chair in Arlington. So normally I'm not across the bridge when you get to a type person, but I'm not going to make, unless the decision's made for me, I'm not going to make a decision until like March something. So
nice problems to have, being wanted to be chair of, potentially multiple organizations.
Yeah, well, in the case of Arlington, it's a rotation thing,
Oh, okay.
And so it's just a sequence of things. Now it's two of us that could be chair, and it's complicated. First off, it's complicated, and secondly, it's not for YouTube.
Understood. Yes, we are still online.
Yeah, and in the case of RTAC, it was uncontested, and to a certain extent, that's flattering, but to another extent, I think it just means that we need to get people who have the bandwidth to do it, because for a lot of people, it's not that they're not capable of doing it or that they don't even really want to do it, but they just don't have the time to do it because it's at least 2 Thursday mornings a month, meaning that or at a minimum 2.5 hours. And since the RTAC chair also belongs to all the other subcommittees, it amounts to being about 8 hours a month of time. That's a little chunk. You got to be able to lose your Thursday mornings, and you got to do it well. So a lot of people just don't have that flexibility or the time to do it. So we'll have to work on that. And I'll tell you, having these remote meetings makes a big difference. When you have to go there, then it really was about a 5-hour day or even a 6-hour day. So there are times when it's just like, okay, I'm just going to chuck Thursday as a work day and then make up for it either on another day or just put in longer hours on other days. But if you have a family, I don't think it's feasible. Or like I just the kids, I don't think it's really feasible to do it. And a job. If you have kids and a job, a full-time job, that has very little flexibility, it's just not feasible, at least before remote. But anyways, I keep going on, and I should stop and let us get going if we want to get going early.
No, that's completely fine. I mean, I was just thinking of, I'd say probably a third to half of the city councilors in my city of Lynn are, working hours that are kind of crazy. I mean, city councilor is not a full-time job in the city of Lynn. I think they have a stipend, but some of them put in 20, 30, 40 hours a week at various city councilor things. Yeah, so I can kind of relate to what you're saying. It's amazing work they do.
Well, I'll say just a little bit about CIF. That is going to tell you about the focus that the MPO and I think maybe we should have is that we talked with Sean Garberly about the regional transportation agencies and what we can do to get them some more funding and to find out if there is some kind of coherence we can give to all of them. So. And there's one member of the select board from Wellesley, Colette Franck, I think it's how you say her last name. She's really working on that. And there is Alexis Walls and Enrique Pepe. Alexis is from something in public health in Massachusetts, and Enrique is from Transportation Massachusetts. There's a bill to support RTAs and that they are advocating for. And I think it'd be good for us to support it. And so the meeting was to set the stage for that. And I'm going to find out from them timelines. And if it's not too late, then maybe The Rock can write a letter of support for the legislation. So that's that on that. Some more to come on that.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have to admit, since I had to leave the marketing operations communications subcommittee after only half an hour, I didn't even have an opportunity to take notes. I don't suppose you could summarize in, I don't know, a minute or two what was at that subcommittee, since I was only there for 25% of the time.
Trying to remember. Well, when Craig took over, we just kind of went down the line on a bunch of topics. And I guess. So there was discussion about the ARPA funding or the infrastructure bill and whether or not there were any projects that are shovel ready. And Craig had a hard time accepting the fact that we can't really have projects that are shovel ready with no funding behind them already, because it takes a lot of money to get a project to be shovel ready. And part of that is well, not only the design, which takes money, but also the public engagement process. And you're just not going to do all of that without being assured that the money is there. And the infrastructure bill does not require that projects be shovel ready, meaning like the requirement was in the financial crisis of 2009, 2008, 2009. And so it's a different rubric. But he just had a hard time understanding why that is the case, and felt that accepting that was not being bold. But for the communities, it's like, show them the money and they'll get stuff shovel ready. It just takes a while to get there. And as our guest pointed out, the community engagement part is a big part of the process. And I know that people often complain about regulations slowing things down. But these regulations are in place for a good reason. Most of them for safety, and environmental reasons. But another part of it, and the part that does slow things down, is the public engagement part. But if you care about democracy, and you as a resident want to have the potential, at least the opportunity, to have a say in what happens in your community, then you need to have that engagement process. And if you take it seriously, it's going to slow things down, because you take that input, and you seriously consider it. And then if you need to change things, you change things. But if you do, then you iterate through that process again. But hey, it does take time. So that was one of the things that sticks in my memory. We went through other things, but there's nothing that really sticks out. Sorry.
No worries. That was a great report. I'm glad that you had that conversation.
And Jonathan lost his signal. Belcher lost his signal. So with Jonathan gone, the signal to noise ratio, of course, went down. And that's a compliment to Jonathan, just in case I got my ratios wrong. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'm seeing that it's about 10 of, so we're actually right on schedule for being in a public comment period. Barry, I know you spoke a little bit at the beginning. Anything that you want to add up or bring up? And Tori's just joined us. Maybe I wasn't watching carefully enough, but Tori, would you like to say a few words in the end of our meeting public comment period? Feel free. I can. Yep, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I just tuned on. Sorry.
That's okay. No,
late,
we're here until 7, so no problem.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
So I usually talk trees and vegetation. So I Viola Augustin has been working with the Urban Forestry Committee to kind of figure out a plant palette. But I'm still confused as to will there be any places where the slope will be like more than 30 feet or that width, or it seems like the retaining walls are going to be pretty high, and so we've lost a lot of vegetation there. Everyone knows the sort of murder of the GLX corridor and tree murder. And so do we have any room to have a larger slope where we might be able to put in some oaks and some trees, rather than just we're kind of sticking with understory plants and scrub oaks? At least we'll have some oaks, but they're not going to get big. But are there any opportunities, or is the MBTA still kind of balking at anything that's going to be above 25 feet because they are afraid of trees falling and not being able to maintain it? So I always just lift that up, and thank you guys for serving and doing what you do. So,
well, thank you. I mean, we'll definitely ask that when that comes back up around again. Yeah, I mean, speaking for myself, I don't know if there's any kind of a guideline of what is the angle of a slope. The size of an area horizontally, vertically, and then the slope of it probably all come into account with what can be planted. But I'm also curious about that. I mean, I'm not as vested in it as you are. But I mean, I certainly appreciate your passion for it, and I highly respect what you've been speaking of. For we've had you join us for what, 3 or 4? It's like probably your 4th, maybe
Yeah,
even
I think
5th
that's
time.
about right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm always glad to hear from you. All I can really say is that we hear you, and we will ask the people that we have available to us.
It seemed pretty conclusive to me when they were here the last time that they weren't going to, put any substantial trees in there. I haven't heard anything different. And,
Same here. I'm just saying
yeah.
that we can at very least ask: is it still the same policy? Has anything changed? I'm
right.
absolutely willing and interested to at least
Sure.
ask that question.
Sure. And
Yeah. And if
I'm
there
kind
are-
of, go ahead, please.
They-
I'm sorry.
Couldn't they plant yews instead of real big trees? Hedge trees?
I'm
Hedge
wondering that as
yews?
well. Yeah. I mean, Tori, you mentioned scrub oaks. I don't know. I mean, I've heard the 25-foot thing before. I actually thought it was less than that. I mean, I thought that all new vegetation was supposed to be really low to the ground, but I'm not an expert. I'm not tied into that at all.
No, I think you might be correct. And I think the other caller, I don't know who spoke, mentioned use. Is something else we could incorporate into the land. We're definitely going to be using native plants. I might be, just I think we have a variety to choose from, and it's kind of hard to keep it to 15 feet, but maybe we don't need to say it might go to 25 feet. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're able to draw from the Atlantic coastal habitat has sort of lots of kind of, miniature, I don't say miniature, but like because of conditions, they're not getting as big, and they're really survive well in basically sand and salt water, so I had another thought, but yeah, I just appreciate you
I
bringing
know
it up.
on the E line, I know on the E line there are Calipari or whatever pear trees that are relatively short and seem to survive very well in poor soil.
Yeah, they're good ones. Currently, they're an invasive species, so it's kind of a live and learn when we're dealing with introduced species. But it's a salient point in as much as we need to plant things that are going to be tolerant of, it may be soil that's not going to be as deep. That is something else I'd like to understand, sort of what the fabric they're going to be using, because all of the retaining walls, the other side of the retaining walls are going to be a lot of big rocks, most likely. And I don't know if they're going to put a foot down of dirt and then the biofabric, or 2 feet, or so.
Have they discussed this at their community meetings?
It's been discussed. Well, during the presentation, when the MBTA presented at one, I think Terrence maybe presented, and so it's been kind of brought up at a couple community meetings, and I'm a member of the Urban Forestry Committee. I'm not speaking on anyone's behalf, but it was brought to the Urban Forestry Committee for our input. But still don't know the depth of soil. Would love to explore areas where we might be able to get just wider stretches, wider swaths of plantable areas. But what is the slope? Some questions have been answered, but it's still, again, just want to lift it in case we can, whatever space we might be able to eke out that had not been necessarily thought about. Yeah, just
I hear you, but wouldn't those community meetings be the place to get those answers better?
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But they don't necessarily have all the answers. I've seen a few renderings, but yeah, I've gotten some answers, but it's just something I will just kind of the answer to, are there areas where we might be able to have more? I guess the reason that I bring it up is just to keep trying, just to keep saying to the GLX, it's really important that we do this. So I have had some answers, but I kind of want to push back on this cap of 15 feet, because I feel like it's saying, you know, some maintenance that we might have to do is less important than you having a significant corridor that we tore down without anyone really telling us that you are important enough for us to start growing maybe a few trees that we'll just have to keep an eye on, because we care about Somerville, and not that it's a throughway for the GLX. Like, it's not going to be a bunch of retaining walls with insignificant trees. You know what I mean? When they kind of come back with, no, we can't do something. Well, there are a lot of big trees in other parts of places where the green line goes through, and you seem to be okay there. And you know, maybe those trees have been there a long time, but maybe people in Brookline advocated and said, no, we want our trees. So I'm just being a voice for the forests that came down, and yeah, maybe a 40 or 50 foot tree with maintenance is okay. And
That's fine.
throw us a bone, GLX.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm just trying to help you be an
That's all.
effective voice. I'm just trying to help you be an effective voice. I mean, so that's why I'm asking, you know, have you asked other parties that can either like give you answers, you know, because I mean, as you say, you need some information and find out the information, and then find out the other parties that can do things. Because if anything, I mean, we would connect you with other people or take up your cause, in which case we still need to know where the answers are. And so the first place to go is the working group, you know, to get the answers. So we've had them. I mean, we can reach out to them without having them at another formal meeting. And sometimes it's kind of better to work behind the scenes, and sometimes you get better information that way. So long, Paul. Take care. Happy Thanksgiving. You know. So
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tori. It's past 7, so unless anyone has any final comments, I will make a motion to adjourn. I mean, Barry, Karen, anything else before we wrap it up?
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, Karen. You too, Barry. And everybody, have a great Thanksgiving. I hope.
Yeah. And let's get in touch, Tori. You know, I think you have my email address.
Exactly.
aldiggins@gmail.com. And we'll see what we can do. All right. Not dismissing you by any stretch. Okay. Take care.
Oh yes, yeah, same here. Yeah, I'm definitely going to keep asking around. I mean, I don't know what I can do other than ask, but that's worth doing.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'll have them come back to the Urban Forestry Committee and give us an update, and then I'll have more information. So
yeah. keep us looped in.
Okay.
You all have a website, the Urban Forestry Committee?
Yeah, we're the Urban Forestry Committee. We have our own our own committee page, and we just I don't think there's anything about the GLX there, but we continually put out information about what to plant and bring awareness to invasives. And it's a new committee. We're about 3 years old. So
do you do pollinators? Do you focus on pollinators?
Focus on
pollinators?
Yeah, using spaces to be corridors, because our pollinators need places to travel from. So if you're a cricket, you kind of need a continuous space, because we want to bring that, you know, what a beautiful sound is to fall asleep to crickets, you know, and it's just kind of prioritizing our pollinators as the creatures who need to be cared for versus whatever aesthetic we think is the best, you know? So just thank you guys.
You're welcome. Take care.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Len, I guess.
That would be me. Yeah.
Second it.
I'm so glad we had this time together, but all good things must come to an end. Bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Travel safe.